Hello, once again, everyone, and welcome to the podcast for Christians United for God and Country and the United States Prayer Force. We call it the Pray for America podcast, and we're glad to have you watching today. Our goal here is to bring you information and encourage you to pray for the United States of America. There's so much going on in our country right now, so much, you can call it craziness, you can call it absurdity, things that a certain segment of our society has embraced and is latching onto. It's kind of hard to believe that what we're seeing going on right here in America. And there's violence, and there's political violence. It's a rough time in our history. Not that we haven't had rough times before. We've got another one on our hands right now. But I'm Steve D, along with Pastor Vince. I've got some news stories for you that we've chosen, and there's lots of things to choose from. Pastor, tell us what you're going to talk about today in your segment.
There's a lot going on in regard to the nation of Israel regarding the peace treaty that supposedly is going to be, signed on Monday or so. But also, there's been some controversy about a portion of Israel, which is referred to as the West Bank.
Right.
And so we're going to talk about the West Bank, in regard to what it is, who has authority there, so forth and so on. And also we're going to talk about as I think it was Rush Limbaugh used to say, the environmentalist wackos. In regard to,
he did.
The things that they're trying to...
and sparse-bearded hippies. Remember that one? Yeah, good old Rush. He was a good man. And we got a couple of news stories here for you, and we choose these from the internet. Try to choose the most interesting ones. There are so many. I wish we could cover a lot more of them, but here's one here. The battle to keep sexually explicit books out of the hands of children has been given a big boost by a federal judge. The judge ruled that Florida's Escambia County School Board could remove a penguin-themed children's book depicting same-sex marriage from its libraries, and that such action does not violate the First Amendment. The school board made the decision to remove the book called And Tango Makes Three, which follows two male penguins who adopt, hatch, and raise Tango, a penguin chick, at New York's Central Park Zoo. The book's co-authors, Peter Parnell and Justin Richardson, and a young female student wanting to borrow that book from her school library, they filed a lawsuit in 2023 to challenge this move to remove those books. They argued that removing the book from children's bookstores based on its pro-LGBT stance was viewpoint discrimination. These plaintiffs argue that the book illustrates that same-sex parents exist, that they can adopt and raise offspring, and have healthy and happy families. They contend that removing the books was a violation of the First Amendment. Well, the Escambia County School Board pushed back on the claim, arguing that curation in a school library does not implicate students or an author's ability to have this book read by people under First Amendment rights. Chief U.S. District Judge Alan Windsor from the District Court for the Northern District of Florida sided with the school board. He said, "There is no view of the facts that could support plaintiffs' claim that the board engaged in unconstitutional viewpoint discrimination or otherwise violated the First Amendment with respect to Tango." Windsor concluded that the library collection does not constitute a public forum for private expression. So libraries can make their own determinations on what constitutes worthwhile literature. A library, I guess unless it's operated by the government, can say, we're going to put these books in here, and we don't want certain books in here, and we're not going to burn the books, but we just don't want the kids to read them. In sum, the board did not violate the First Amendment when it decided to remove the Tango book from its school libraries. This does not, of course, keep the book or any viewpoint in it from female students or any other student, Windsor wrote. They can get the book in other places. The Escambia County School Board has simply decided students wanting this particular book will have to get it somewhere else.
Well, as we've said on numerous occasions, the purpose of all this is not just nonsense. This is wickedness, is to ultimately indoctrinate children, in a viewpoint which they should not be having to listen to or, have put upon them. Now,
not at that age. I don't know how old they were talking about. This sounds like a book for very, very young kids.
Just like, there used to be a day when you talked about school and you talked about reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah.
Okay. Not all this wickedness and this ungodliness.
Well, this sort of cultural grooming for, so that you'll believe the way they believe. And as Christians, we just believe that, there's a certain way of living that is considered righteous. There's a holy way of living. We kind of advocate for that. Does not mean that those who are not practicing, true Christianity, that somehow we hate them. There is no hatred going out here. We have a moral standard that we adhere to. We want our children to adhere to that standard. And you know,
And there's no reason why this stuff has to be, either indoctrinated in the minds of children purposefully, or just, in a case like this, it's no teacher teaching it, but you just have this stuff available.
It's all about children.
It doesn't need to be all right in a public elementary school.
Not elementary school. I think when kids get older,
and it doesn't even need to be in a high school.
Well, it doesn't need to be, but I think eventually they're going to deal with it because they're going to encounter other students.
That's the choice of the parent. It's not the choice.
Well, I'm just saying, but you still want to educate the child on what's happening in the society around them. I mean, if they, like I say, they may have friends that are considered themselves gay, and they may be behaving in such a fashion, and the kid's going to wonder, they want to learn, they want to know the truth, they want to know what's going on.
Well, then you have to present both sides of the story.
Exactly.
Which the school boards, most school boards wouldn't do if they're
well, they're not going to present the Christian point of view in the school.
That's what I'm saying.
Separation of church and state, and all that kind of thing. Let's move on. Don't want to take up too much time here, but here's this is another tragic story, and we've talked about violent persecution against Christians going on around the world. More than 30 Christians have been beheaded at the hands of Islamic State terrorists in Mozambique, according to a report. The Islamic State Mozambique province announced that they destroyed at least 7 churches, committed acts of arson against Christians and village civilians, and shot and beheaded more than 24 people in the Cabo Delgado and Nampula provinces in the northern area of Mozambique. The Middle East Media Research Institute did a screen capture, translated, and shared the terrorists' report on their website, which included 20 photos of these brutal attacks on Christians. According to the organization, the Islamic State of Mozambique is reigning through terror in the region. CBN News reported violent attacks began in Cabo Delgado province in 2017. Since then, more than 6,000 people have been killed and thousands more have been displaced. CBN reporters are pointing out that the plight of Mozambican Christians is largely ignored in the Western world. One of them was saying, can you imagine if the headline read, "The Israeli Defense Force beheads 30 Palestinians"? Mm-hmm. We would be talking about the biggest news story since 9/11, which occurred here in the U.S. They noted that the major media outlets have failed to report on the genocide happening against Christians in multiple countries in Africa, the world.
Not only not reporting it, but not telling the story about who is committing these acts of violence.
Right.
Persecution of Christians.
They don't want that somehow. It's odd that the truth is only good, if it fits in with your particular perspective or ideology. Here's another one here. Turning Point USA, the grassroots conservative political action network founded by the late activist Charlie Kirk. Well, they're planning a Super Bowl halftime show with the goal of competing with the official show featuring Bad Bunny and sponsored by Apple Music. The All-American halftime show will take place on Super Bowl Sunday during the big game on February 8th. A website for the event gave few other details about Turning Point's plans, but indicated more information about performers and how the concert will be broadcast will be forthcoming. A survey on the site asks respondents to select from a number of genres they'd like to hear during the show, including country, hip-hop, rock, Christian music, or anything in English. Now, they see Bad Bunny was planning on doing his show completely in Spanish, which is he's going to leave a few of us out.
Also, I don't know if you were going to tell this, but recently, in the playoffs regarding the American League, he had the Yankees playing against the Toronto Blue Jays, and so at the 7th inning, they play "God Bless America." And everybody in the stadium stood up, I believe, with the exception of Bad Bunny, who was there. All right, he did not stand for the the song "God Bless America." Football is an American sport. I know they want to get
worldwide international recognition.
Okay, but listen, it's American,
right?
Okay, and so why would you have a man that doesn't have enough decency, and respect? All right, for the United States of America, that won't even stand for that song, "God Bless America." You don't need a guy like that.
No, you don't. I think they say also some of his performances are somewhat gender fluid, and he dresses up in like skirts and dresses and comes out and prances around and all this. I mean, to me,
put him back in his cage and send him back to Puerto Rico. Well, that's what you do with Bad Bunny.
Well, you could also call him Dumb Bunny. I think that would probably work a little better under the circumstances. We're not hating these people, by the way. Everyone, Christians hate everybody. No, we don't hate anybody. We just have a moral standard we'd like to hold to, and you can go any way you want to go. You can do whatever you want to do, but we're going to raise our children the way we think they should be raised. Anyway, let me finish up this story here. There's plenty of counter programming. It's been run over the years to try to siphon off the massive audience that tunes into Super Bowl during the past halftime events, from puppy bowls to wrestling shows and things like that. But this might be the first time a political group has offered counter programming because they disagree with the music artist. The show's announcement comes amid sharp backlash on the right to the NFL's selection of Bad Bunny, a star from Puerto Rico who is wildly successful on the charts. Apparently, he's got quite an audience there. Bad Bunny has said he will not tour in the United States for fear that his concerts will be targeted by federal immigration authorities amid the president's widespread deportation efforts. So there you go. The Super Bowl. I like the football. I mean, they've had some good artists on it that were acceptable in years past. I mean, I think Michael Jackson did one. I think Paul McCartney did one. There's a whole bunch of folks that have done Super Bowls and music shows at halftime. But this Bad Bunny thing is bringing up a lot of controversy. It's quite interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's it for news. We're glad you're tuned in here. You're listening to the Pray for America podcast. Like I said, we're here to get you to pray for America. We're not here to judge anybody and we're judging behavior. When we see behavior that we just don't agree with, we got to call it out. That's all. You don't have to agree with us. You can call us and tell us right now you disagree. We'd be happy to hear from you. You can send us an email too at christiansunited50@gmail.com. I can show that on the screen, and I will at some point here real quick. You can send us an email and talk to us. We will respond to your message, whatever you want to send us. We'd love to hear from you. And it's great. So you can also, if you're on YouTube right now, you can write a comment in the comment section, and it'll pop up on our screen. We can talk and respond to your comment that way as well. Thanks again for watching. Pastor, what have you got for us today?
All right. First of all, I want to speak about the West Bank and explain to maybe some of our listeners, viewers, what that is and the controversy around the West Bank.
Right.
And, as probably most of you are aware, the West Bank is a piece of territory within the borders of Israel.
Yes.
And it's bordered by the Jordan River.
Should I show the map?
Right. Put out the map.
Okay.
You can see it's bordered by the Jordan River, and on the east, along with the Dead Sea.
Right.
And it's then surrounded by Israel on the north, on the south, and on the west.
Right. If you're looking at the map right now on your screen,
area.
yes, see that little gray patch right there near the top half of the screen. That is the West Bank. If you go towards the east, towards the water a little bit, you see a little tiny sliver right there at the corner at the top of Egypt. That is the Gaza Strip. And so it's the West Bank and Gaza right there on the map. You can see it.
Now, this area, all right, it's made up of about 2,180 square miles of land, and it's approximately just a little bit smaller, all right, than the state of Delaware. Now, in regard to who controls, all right, this area, the West Bank, in 1969, Israel fought the Six-Day War, and at that particular time, they took control of that area now, which we referred to as the West Bank. Now, in the 1980s, there was a meeting that we referred to it as the Oslo Accords, international governments meeting, and they divided the West Bank into 3 regions, which are supposed to be under Palestinian control, and it's this control of the West Bank is to be administered by the Palestinian National Authority. So even though this is land within the nation of Israel,
right?
Okay, it's really not controlled completely by the nation of Israel.
Right.
And, the Palestinian National Authority exercises, partial control over 165 enclaves in these 3 regions. And Palestinians some international governments, world governments, all right, when they talk about a homeland, all right, or a Palestinian state, that's what they are talking about. They're talking about making this West Bank area, all right, a Palestinian,
a sovereign entity,
sovereign entity,
a country unto itself.
All right. Now, even though to some extent Palestinians are administering control over their governments in that area, it's really not a sovereign nation and really not completely under Palestinian control. But this is what, recently, a couple of weeks ago, about 9, countries, including, Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom, as well as 6 others. They talked about, supporting a Palestinian state. That's where it would be within the boundaries of what we refer to as the West Bank. Now,
Gotcha.
in recent years, Israelis have been moving into one part. Remember, there's 3 sections that make up the West Bank, and Israelis have been moving into one of those sections, and now they have 230 settlements. And the international community considers, all right, these settlers who have moved into the West Bank, they consider that to be all of it to be illegal. And in 2004, the International Court of Justice, all right, declared that none of these settlements should be allowed to be there. And so, the population of the West Bank is almost 3 million. 2,747,943 Palestinians live, all right, in this West Bank area, and 670,000 Israeli settlers now live in this West Bank area, and 2,000 of which live in East Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is a divided city. Right. And when you talk about going to, let's say taking a trip to Israel, do some sightseeing, if you're going to go to Bethlehem, you're really in an area controlled in that part of the West Bank, controlled by Palestinians. Okay. So, it's in Israel, but it's not controlled by Israel, but it's not even really controlled by the Palestinians. Right. And so that's the West Bank area. And as you can see, as you look at that map, put
it up again real quick. Yep.
That's a large portion.
It is a very large portion of the country,
of the nation of Israel. But that's where the controversy is.
Right.
And when the international community talks about a, 2-state solution in regard to peace, in regard to Israel and the Palestinians, that's the area.
Question for you. Do you think it's possible that this whole West Bank and this Gaza Strip portion of Israel is somewhat of a Trojan horse by the more radical Muslim sects like Hamas? I mean, Hamas took over the Gaza Strip in regards to its governing authority, and they launched a horrible, horrible attack on Jewish people back on October 7th, a year ago.
2 years.
2 years, excuse me, 2 years ago. And, right now in the news, we've got this sort of peace agreement that came about through the efforts of President Trump and his administration. And they're saying that the hostages are going to be released on Monday, which is the day after tomorrow. And do you think that there will be a lasting peace? Could it possibly be?
I don't think there's going to be a lasting peace. Okay. But here's what you need to realize in regard to all this coming about.
Yeah.
All right. What the reason why Hamas is thus far agreeing to this is because they've been decimated.
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
Sure.
Militarily, they have been decimated by, the Israeli army, and financially, they have been decimated. They have no monies coming into their coffers to accomplish this thing. And that's because of the policies that President Trump has put in place where they are no longer being funded.
Right.
Well, I'm sure they're being funded to some extent. All right. But no longer these great amounts, millions upon millions of dollars coming into them through governments like Qatar or, maybe even Saudi Arabia. That's all been cut off. Even the Iranian monies that were coming into them. So they're decimated financially, they're decimated, militarily, and they're decimated politically. So they got no place to go but to agree, or nothing to do, but they have to agree. Now, will it be a lasting? No way.
No, I mean,
because their ultimate goal,
is to eliminate Israel.
Yeah. Okay.
They're not going to just surrender that, because of something that Donald Trump has put together.
And that's one of the things when the rapture takes place and the Antichrist comes on the scene. Okay. He's going to bring peace to the Middle East. So we know that this is not going to be anything that's lasting.
Right.
And even if they make overtures like they're willing and, they're going to go along and comply, that
it's temporary,
undercover,
Trojan horse,
they're going to, be still plotting and planning and seeking to accomplish their goal.
Well, President Trump has received a lot of accolades for putting this deal together. It's being said that he is probably one of the only individuals that could have pulled it off. The art of the deal, the great deal maker. And it's interesting because at work, I am listening to CNN all day long. And even many people were giving President Trump accolades, credit for pulling this off. I'm talking about people that consider him a horrible person, that don't like him. And you got people like Obama, and you've got other folks like that who will say, this is a wonderful thing, this is a great deal, but they won't give any credit to President Trump at all. Not at all. So it's
Well, because in regard to his art of the deal,
Yeah.
and how he deals with companies or
Yeah.
now international communities and
Right.
countries, all right, he presses those people.
Sure.
You got two people coming to the table, and he presses both sides.
Sure.
All right. So at one side, if you don't do this, you're not going to get this.
Right.
And then he goes to the other side and say, you have to comply, or
Hey,
you're not going to get this.
If it works, it works.
So that's basically what he's done.
Can I also toss in that Hillary Clinton said something good about President Trump, which blew all of our minds. We were really happy to see it. It's an interesting, a very landmark agreement in so many different ways, even for politics here in America. It has its effects. It has some interesting repercussions.
But you see, that's the failure,
Yeah.
okay, of these other administrations, is because they would never go into as a mediator between both sides,
Right.
all right, and press anybody.
Sure.
They would not force anybody to, accept these conditions,
Yeah.
or else. There was never any or else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even sometimes, when they would say or else, they'd never follow through,
Right.
Yeah. So forth and so on. So that's why, in regard to these factions, they would just go ahead and do what they're going to do, because they know America wouldn't do anything anyways.
Sure.
But anyways, let me go on here.
Yep.
And I want to talk about, you had a news story. I want to start with it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But, on Tuesday of this past week, we had an individual. His name was Jonathan, if I can say his name right, Kinder Connect, if I'm saying that.
Probably
AKA,
probably the K is silent.
Kinder.
Kindernet.
Yeah,
It'll probably be
All right. We'll just call him Jonathan Kinder. He was arrested in Melbourne, Florida, for his part in starting what became, one of the worst fires in the history of Los Angeles.
Sure.
And it started about a year ago, not quite a year ago. Shortly after midnight on January the 1st in 2025, Kinder started a fire on land owned by the Mountain Recreation and Conservation Authority. And so firefighters were ultimately called. They responded to the fire. They put the fire out. But unbeknownst to them, all right, the fire went underground and burnt underground for about a week. And then, on January the 7th, the fire made its way to the surface. And because of the dry conditions and the California mountain winds, it quickly spread, just over a phenomenal area,
Sure.
a great area.
Billions of dollars in damage.
Destroyed 23,000 acres of land, and scores of private homes were destroyed. And really, in the end, 6,800 structures, I guess not just homes, but various structures on those properties that were owned by people and maybe the government, they were all burnt to the ground. And so now we know the cause of the fire. It was it was started by somebody, and that's how it started, and that's how it ultimately came to surface and spread and did all this tremendous amounts of damage. But anyways, from the very get-go, climate control activists tried to say that climate change made the Palisades fire more deadly, okay? And some went so far as to write articles and say that it was actually climate change that started the fire, not just that contributed to the the fire itself and spreading so rapidly, so forth and so on. But climate change actually started the fire, and now we know that's not true.
Right.
Now, while climate change activists claim that their grave concern regarding it's the change of climate and so forth and so on, and how it affects the world's population, so forth and so on, it's actually based. Some of these extreme environmentalists, as Rush used to say, as we made reference ago, wackos. All right. It's not just all about what they refer to as science. Okay. And what's going on in the world today.
Right.
And a number of these extreme climate control peoples, all right, believe in a goddess, all right, called Gaia. They believe
You're
in,
kidding.
yeah, they believe in a goddess called Gaia. So this is going back to paganism. And Gaia is the goddess of the earth.
Is that Mother Nature?
Yeah,
That's what
we might call her Mother Nature, but they don't
Okay.
call her Mother Nature,
No, only the commercials on TV do that.
yeah. She's the goddess of the earth, and she maintains the earth's equilibrium. All right. She is a spirit, and
Hmm.
she's, she controls what goes on in the world in regard to its equilibrium.
Gotcha.
And climate change activists maintain, and they say that to upset the equilibrium of this earth, all right, and Gaia, because it's not just in regard to things that are going on the earth. When you upset the equilibrium of the earth, you are upsetting Gaia.
Ah.
Okay, and you get her angry.
Mhm.
All right, and this has to be stopped, and it has to be that's why they are so adamant in regard to things like overpopulation. Overpopulation of the world upsets the Earth's equilibrium and
Gotcha.
Gaia. And that's why if you look at environmentalists, you know what they're all going to be? Pro-abortion.
Mhm.
Okay, because you can't have too many people in this world.
That's
All
right.
right. And then you can find people that say, listen, in regard to overpopulation of the world, no how, no way, it's never going to happen. But you'll never convince a climate change individual about that. So they have to stop world overpopulation. Another thing that they're always concerned about is the use of fossil fuels and their development. And they will press individuals and organizations to withdraw, investment in fossil fuel companies. Just like, in regard to some of this stuff that happened last summer, in regard to, the protesting of Israel, and you had college students demanding, all right, that the administration and these universities and colleges not withdraw any kind of investment,
Mhm.
that they had,
Mhm.
all right, in the nation of Israel. And they do the same thing with climate control. You see, they demand that any kind of investment in climate control, not climate control, but fossil fuel development has to be stopped.
Right.
And so that's another thing that they're very into. And they they have lawsuits against government and fossil fuel companies, who fail to address climate control. And
Right.
you don't hear too much about it now, but just a couple of years ago, you had like the state of New York pass a law, all right, that especially I think it was in New York City, that nobody anymore could have a gas oven.
Mhm.
Those were against the law.
Right.
That's by environmentalists, all
Right.
right, pushing that kind of stuff. And we've heard about it was big in the Biden administration, and then with the Democrats, the Green New Deal, and that focuses the government is supposed to focus itself in developing renewable energy and it's equitable development.
Mhm.
And climate control activists, uh, uh, they also press governments like the United Kingdom, in the Parliament of the United Kingdom, ultimately passed a thing where they called, they said that we are actually in a climate emergency.
Right.
And this is all promoted and fostered by these climate control people. But what I'm wanting you to realize that, you can find many scientists, so forth and so on, that say climate control is a complete farce. All right. It's not true.
Mhm.
But also, what I'm wanting you to realize, it's not just because they have this particular point of view about what's going on in the world regarding things that are really scientific. It's also because the upper echelon in regard to climate control are pagans, and
Mhm.
they believe in this goddess of the earth.
Yeah. I've never heard any of them mention that, though. I mean,
They don't mention
no,
it.
that's kind of
It's like undercover. Okay.
no doubt. Yes.
But here's a statement,
Mhm.
all right, from a man by the name of James Loveland. He made this statement in 2021. And Loveland is a British environmentalist who first formed the Gaian theory
No
or the
way.
Gaia theory. This is what he said. He said, but my fellow humans must learn to live in partnership with the earth. Otherwise, the rest of creation will be will have no part of Gaia, and this will move the earth to a new state, in which humans may no longer be welcome.
So essentially, this is a religion.
It is.
Yeah, it's a religion.
Okay. It's just paganism.
Yes.
Okay. Repackaged.
Mhm.
All right. And put under a new name.
Mhm.
A couple of years ago, not that long ago, AOC said if we don't do something right
Yeah.
now, the earth is going to be over. Everything in
That's
regard to
right.
this world is going to be over in 12 years.
Sure.
Okay. So that is these environmentalists who believe in this nonsense
I know it.
that you cannot, if we continue doing the things that we're doing, the earth is going to lose its equilibrium,
Mhm.
and this goddess Gaia will be upset, and she'll, okay,
What's she going to do?
she's gonna allow bad things to happen to remove humans, because it's
Ah.
humans' fault that this stuff is going on
Right.
in the world.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so, as I'm, was alluding to, what we need to realize that as we get closer to the rapture and the tribulation period and the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ, you are seeing, really a growing number of people in our country and around the world are becoming anti-God, anti-Christ, anti-Bible. All right. And these modern movements at their core are satanic and ungodly and a reinvention. They're a reinvention, all right, of idolatry and paganism.
Mhm.
All right. Now you go to the Old Testament and you read the Old Testament and you realize, listen, back in biblical times, you see, everybody, all right, believed in a God. Now, they didn't believe in the true God, let's say, in regard to the nation of Israel, but they believed in deity, a deity or deities.
Mhm.
And I really don't think, I know there's a lot of people that might call themselves atheists or might call themselves agnostic, but in essence, what I'm saying, behind all this stuff that's going on in this world, there are spirits and deities involved. And as we get closer to the rapture and the tribulation and second coming of Christ, these movements that we're now seeing under their core, all right, they have these pagan ideas which are resurfacing, okay, in the dates and time in which we live. Now, as I said in the Old Testament, when Israel apostatized, for instance, in the book of Judges, when they get away from God and they get involved in idolatrous things. All right, I'm going to give you a verse of scripture from the book of Judges, chapter 2, verses 11 to 13. It says, "And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Balaam,"
Yes.
or Baal.
Yep.
All right, when you put an I-M at the end of a word, that means that's a plurality involved. And it says they served Balaam. All right, that's a male deity. "And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods of the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves to them, and provoked the Lord to anger. And they forsook the Lord and served Baal and Ashtaroth." Okay, so they served gods where there was a male deity and a female deity. Baal was the male deity, and Ashtaroth, there's another spelling of her name, Ashtoreth, all right, but same person, but that was the female deity. And as we now are in these times, all right, you see people getting involved, the upper echelon, okay, and it's like what you were talking about a little while ago, okay, in regard to, I think it was Mozambique.
Yes.
Okay.
Persecution.
Persecution of Christians.
Mhm.
The mainstream media doesn't say anything about it.
That's
So
right.
we are ignorant of that stuff unless you're going to a Christian,
Yeah, a news
news
source.
agency.
Yes.
All right. And you're going to find out about what's going on there. But other than that, we don't know anything about it.
All right.
We don't know anything about what's going on because we're just trying to live our lives, love the Lord, serve the Lord, live for the Lord. We don't realize what's going on in regard to the pagan ideology that's going on in the world.
Right.
Okay. And that's what's going on in the world regarding these climate control people.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the people that are really at the sort of the head of this sort of movement, if you want to call it. I think the average person that really believes that climate change is a serious issue, they don't know anything at all about this sort of spiritual background, this goddess of Gaia and this all that.
No, but you see it, this promotion of a female deity. Okay. Yeah. It's Maybe they're not believing in Gaia herself.
Right.
All right. Or that spirit now that they claim controls the world and
Right.
its equilibrium. All right. But you see the promotion,
Mm-hmm.
okay, of females, okay, as in essence, goddesses. You
Well,
see, like a Taylor Swift.
I got a handful of jokes that I wanted to, I'm not going to say them.
And you know, women like that. You don't hear too much about men. Not that men aren't, in regard to the entertainment world, but looked upon as gods. But you kind of get
Well,
this mentality of females
sure.
looked upon as goddesses.
Yeah.
All right. When Taylor Swift came out with this new CD, whatever you want to call it, all right, music, her just recently released, CD.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a report, and a woman was claiming, I don't know how old she was, relatively young, how Taylor Swift helped her through the difficult times of her life.
Okay.
No, but that's where God is supposed to help you, not Taylor Swift, not a woman, all right, not even a man,
right.
Okay, but
right.
that's the deification, you see,
to
of
some degree.
individuals, of
I
people.
guess. Yep.
Okay, that's what they're looked upon.
Right.
That's why, in essence, they are worshipped almost.
What would you say the ultimate goal of these climate activists is? What would they consider a great victory in their movement?
Well, their movement is to bring about all these things that they've been advocating for.
Right.
Okay. So that they can bring about equilibrium to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that, Gaia, okay, will be satisfied. And that's why they, will seek to stop anything that goes against their mentality in regard to.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that's what's behind all this, because the world is becoming increasingly pagan, because ultimately, and there's Marxism involved in all this stuff too.
Indeed, there seems to be.
And there's Marxism involved in it, and everybody has to acquiesce for the common good. You can't have a gas burning stove. You can't drive a car that's not,
it's a lot of control going on there. Yeah.
That's, that's run by fossil fuels. You can't do this. You can't do that.
Right.
All right. That's the ultimate goal, because ultimately someone who's going to come on the scene, all right, who's going to just be the ultimate, individual who's going to bring about world control, and that is the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
But the world will be ready for that, because they're being conditioned for it right now.
Right.
And in pagan and Old Testament times, this mentality of worshiping female deities, all right, it was everywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
In Assyria, you had she was called Ishtar. All right, in Egypt, she was called Isis. A number of years ago, there was a show called Wonder Woman, and her name was Isis. But where do you think that came from?
Was it really?
Yes.
I didn't remember that. I never watched
it. Her name was Isis.
Right.
All right. In Greece, she was Aphrodite. In Rome, she was Venus. And so we have to, as Bible-believing Christians, all right, our responsibility is to spread the good news of salvation.
Maybe I shouldn't say this, but the Catholic Church venerates Mary almost to goddess status.
Well, yes.
They claim she was sinless. And if you go to the Vatican, and I was in the Vatican a couple of weeks ago, and looking around, she is big time in the artwork. She's up there. Boy, she's like a goddess.
Well,
to some degree.
Yes. And what is Mary called to some extent in the Catholic?
The Mother of God.
Well, the Mother of God. She's called the Queen of Heaven.
Oh, that too.
Yeah. Yes. And if you were to go in your Bible to Jeremiah, all right, chapter 44, I won't read you the verses for the sake of time, but in Jeremiah chapter 44, verses 17, 18, and 19, it talks about the worship of the Queen of Heaven.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
And so that is completely pagan.
Indeed.
And I'm just trying to get across to in your minds that there's a movement and there's things going on in this world that it's spiritual.
Yes.
Okay. It comes under the guise of maybe science, but the world is moving and becoming more pagan. That's why it's imperative upon you and I as Christians to preach Christ and to see people get saved and to pray that God will restrain these forces of evil, because they are at work.
Gotcha. Folks, you're listening to the Pray for America podcast. Our primary goal here is to get you to pray for America. We're not here to judge anyone. We're not here to tell you that we're better than anyone. That's not what we're all about. We just want you to be exposed to the gospel of Jesus Christ, take it under serious consideration, and we're hopefully that you will accept it one day, and you'll understand that Jesus is the Lord of all. That's kind of where we are, and that's what we believe. If you have the ability to do so, we would love for you to support the podcast by sending something via U.S. mail. Christians United, P.O. Box 2275, Stamford, Connecticut 06906. Or you can go to our website, christiansunited50.com, christiansunited50.com. There is a donate page there where you can make a donation and keep the podcast going. If you agree with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch with us very easily. We do have an email address. You can send us an email. We'd love to respond to it. christiansunited50@gmail.com. Just do that, and we do appreciate it. The Pray for America podcast. It's something that we hope you'll share with friends and get it out there and pray for this country. America needs so much prayer right now. So much is going on in the world and in our country that we never thought we would see. That we're glad to have you listening, Pastor. One final word before we sign off for this program.
All right. Remember what the Bible says in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse number 8. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walketh about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour.
Yes.
So, be cognizant of the things that are going on around us and the spiritual battle that we need to be involved in regard to praying,
right?
Not just for, America, but praying, that God would restrain these forces of evil that are at work, and preaching the gospel and seeing people get saved.
Amen. That's all, folks. We're so glad you've listened, and we hope that you'll tune in again next week and get in touch with us. Let us know what you think about all the issues that we're discussing. God bless. Talk to you again soon.